Hi children, in the last session of our video we have dealt with the introduction of alkali metals and some of the physical and chemical properties of alkali metals. So now in this session we are going to discuss the most important topic of alkali metals, that is the anomalous behavior of lithium, and then next followed with some important compounds of alkali metals, that are some of the compounds of sodium, potassium and lithium, so on, which we use frequently in our day to day life, and their preparations and properties. So now let us start with the anomalous behavior of lithium. Now starting with anomalous behavior of lithium, children. So comparative to the other elements which are present in the alkali metals, mostly what are the alkali metals, children? Lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium and francium. Among all other elements in the alkali metals, lithium is very special and it behaves differently with respect to the other elements of alkali metals. So this peculiar character of lithium is due to its extremely small size. When compared to other elements, lithium has very extremely small size. So due to this extremely small size, the lithium behaves differently in all respects, in all characteristics, in all reactions with respect to the other alkali metals. So now we are going to discuss some of those different properties with respect to lithium and other alkali metals, children. So now I am going to write some important anomalous characters of lithium. So lithium is an anomalous element which behaves different from other alkali metals due to its extremely smaller atomic size. So what are those anomalous behaviors, children? So lithium has very small size, so that it has very high ionization energy or ionization potentials. Due to its small size, it has very high ionization potential, and lithium is hard metal which is different from other metals, whereas other alkali metals like sodium, potassium are generally soft metals, And coming to the melting and boiling points, so usually the melting and boiling points of the alkali metals are generally different with respect to that of lithium. So lithium has very high melting and boiling points, whereas the other alkali metals generally have very low melting and boiling points. And besides this, lithium is the only element of alkali metals which forms normal oxide on reaction with oxygen. So in the earlier session we have already discussed this. All the alkali metals react with oxygen, but only lithium will form normal oxide, whereas the other alkali metals, that is sodium, potassium, rubidium, cesium, they form either peroxides, or that is sodium will form peroxide, whereas other will form superoxides. But lithium is the only element which forms normal oxide on reaction with oxygen. And the next important characteristic is lithium is the only element of alkali metals which forms nitride with nitrogen. So this formation of nitride is not observed in any other alkali metals, only lithium will form nitrides with the reaction with nitrogen. And the next one is lithium nitrate, lithium carbonate respectively. The compounds of lithium are easily decomposable, that are easily thermally decomposable, and they produce corresponding compounds like lithium carbonate will decompose to form lithium oxide plus carbon dioxide, and lithium nitrate will decompose to form nitrogen dioxide, oxygen and lithium oxide. So in that manner, so lithium compounds are easily decomposable, thermally they are very reactive. If we heat it for a very little temperature, it will decompose, whereas other alkali carbonates or nitrates are thermally very stable, So besides this, lithium will show diagonal relationship with magnesium. That is, diagonal relationship is nothing but the resemblance or similarities in the characters of elements of one period with the diagonal element of the next period. That relationship is called diagonal relationship, children. Generally, this diagonal relationship is observed in the periodic table between the second and third period elements generally, and that too the first two groups mostly they show. So in that manner, if you consider lithium belongs to 1A group, and the diagonal element after lithium we have sodium over here. The diagonal element that is present in the next period of next group, that is in the second A group is magnesium, so that it will show diagonal relationship with magnesium, children. So means diagonal relationship is a kind of relationship where there is very peculiar similarities in the properties of these two elements which are in diagonal relationship. So this type of relationship is observed in many other elements also in the periodic table. So one among those is lithium magnesium relationship is also. So let me explain you or define you the diagonal relationship, children. The similarity or resemblance in the physical and chemical characteristics of element of one period with the diagonal element of next period. Like if you take 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A, so lithium, sodium, potassium, generally it is generally observed between second and third periods only, children. So here beryllium, magnesium, boron, aluminium, next carbon, silicon. So generally lithium will have similarity with magnesium, and beryllium will have similarity with aluminium, and boron will have similarity with silicon. Similarly, nitrogen, phosphorus. So in such a manner, one of the element in the second period shows similarities with its properties with the other element in the next period which is present diagonally to it. Such a relationship is called diagonal relationship. So what similarities do you have between lithium and magnesium if you consider? For suppose magnesium reacts with water in order to produce hydrogen gas, children. In the similar manner, lithium also reacts with water in order to produce hydrogen gas. Just now I have explained you know children, what are the similarities? Lithium like magnesium reacts with water to form hydroxide with liberation of hydrogen gas. So if you take lithium plus water, you will get lithium hydroxide plus H2 gas. Lithium hydroxide plus H2 gas. So in order to balance, you need to keep 2 here, 2 here. So totally it is balanced. Similarly, magnesium will also react like that only. So we will get magnesium hydroxide, that is MgOH twice we will get, plus hydrogen. So you need to balance the equation. 2 hydrogens we have, 2 oxygens we have. So you can keep 2 in front of H2O so that it will be balanced. So like magnesium, lithium will react with water to produce corresponding hydroxide and hydrogen gas. Similarly, lithium like magnesium reacts with nitrogen to form respective nitrides. So lithium plus nitrogen gas will produce lithium nitride, that is Li3N2. Similarly, magnesium plus N2 gas will produce Mg3N2. Sorry, this is Li3N. So it is balanced because lithium's charge is +1 and nitrogen charge is -3. So you will get Li3N. So here magnesium charge is +2 and nitride charge is -3. So you will get Mg3N2. So in order to balance, you have to keep 6 over here. Now it is balanced. 4 nitrogens, 6 magnesium, 6 magnesium. So similar to that of magnesium, lithium also produces nitrides on reaction with nitrogen, which is not found in any other alkali metals, as we have discussed earlier. So now we are going to discuss some important compounds of alkali metals. In that course we are going to discuss about some important compounds that we regularly use of the compounds of sodium. So now we are going to discuss about compounds, common compounds of alkali metals. So in that course we are going to discuss about compounds of sodium. So what is the most commonly used compound of sodium, children? Yes, NaCl. NaCl is most commonly used as common salt by us, and it have many other uses also. So now first let us discuss one of the compounds of sodium, that is sodium chloride. So its name is sodium chloride. its name is sodium chloride, and it is generally prepared or occurrence also you can say, from seawater. Seawater generally contains 2.7 to 2.9 percentage of NaCl children, sodium chloride mixed with other impurities also. So this seawater is taken and it is subjected to evaporation. It is subjected to evaporation in the presence of sunlight, and the process of evaporation is taken place, and you will be left with crude NaCl, that is solid NaCl, and this crude NaCl is subjected to what you call distillation, that is purification techniques, because it contains some dissolved impurities and also undissolved impurities. The undissolved impurities can be just separated out by filtration, but the dissolved impurities are carried out or removed by distillation, and then we will get pure NaCl. This pure NaCl is commonly used as table salt or common salt, which is very most important ingredient of our foods. So NaCl has many other advantages also, where we use chemically in many industries. Now we are going to discuss about the properties and uses of NaCl. Now let us discuss the properties of NaCl. So NaCl is generally white in color, neutral salt, and hygroscopic in nature. What is meant by hygroscopic, children? Tends to absorb water vapor from air. So if you leave salt in open air, if you observe it after some time, you can see that some watery content will be observed in the salt, it becomes somewhat waterish. So this is due to the absorption of water vapor from the atmosphere. That nature is nothing but hygroscopic in nature. And what are the, generally it reacts with AgNO3, that is silver nitrate, and it will produce sodium nitrate plus AgCl. A white precipitate of AgCl is formed. So this can be used as a confirmation test for sodium chloride also. And what are the uses of this sodium chloride? Generally it is used as ingredient, most important ingredient of food, and also it is used as NaCl plus ice mixture is used as freezing mixture, which is used to just store the ice storage, you will call it ice storage you will call it, no children. This freezing mixture is used to preserve the food items which you have to keep it for a long lasting, like meat, fish, all these are just stored in cold storages. Those cold storages are just done by freezing mixture only, which is a mixture of NaCl and ice. And besides this, aqueous NaCl, which is called as brine solution. Solid NaCl, that is normal crystal NaCl, is called rock salt children, whereas aqueous NaCl dissolved in water is called brine solution. This is used for preparation of H2 gas, Cl2 gas and NaOH. Just by electrolysis, just by passing electricity through this aqueous solution of NaCl, the NaCl can be splitted into NaOH, or it can be produced as, or it can produce NaOH, H2 gas and Cl2 gas children. This electrolysis of aqueous NaCl to produce these, that is H2, Cl2 and NaOH, is generally called as chlor-alkali process. Chlor-alkali process. Chlor-alkali process. So you can say that NaCl is used in the preparation of NaOH, chlorine and Cl2. So the second important compound of sodium is children sodium hydroxide, which is commonly called as caustic soda. So its chemical name is sodium hydroxide, children. So chemical name of this NaOH is sodium hydroxide, but it is commonly called as caustic soda. Sodium hydroxide, its chemical name. So this sodium hydroxide can be prepared by two methods. I have written here two. The Nelson cell preparation is the first one and Kastner-Kellner process is the second one. So in the Nelson cell preparation, which is also called as chlor-alkali process, I have said you just now. So that can be called as laboratory preparation of that chlor-alkali process, can also be called as Nelson cell process, where we will take aqueous NaCl, that is brine solution. Aqueous NaCl, what we call, children, brine solution. NaCl dissolved in water is called aqueous NaCl, which is commonly called as brine solution. That we will take and we will just electrolyze it. Then it will split into Na plus ion and Cl minus ion, and in the presence of water we will do. So water will split into H plus ion and OH minus ion, children. So among all these ions, they will re-intermix into different compounds, like Na will combine with OH to form NaOH, and two H plus ions produced will combine with each other to produce H2 gas, and two Cl minus respectively combine with each other to form Cl2 gas. So these are the products we obtain in the Nelson cell process, that is NaOH, H2 gas and Cl2 gas. So what reactions takes place at cathode and what reactions takes place at anode are very important in any preparation, children. So remember that the reactions at a cathode and anode are generally asked in your competitive examination with respect to the preparations. So go through that clearly. So in this preparation at cathode, generally cathode is which charged electrode, children? Cathode is negatively charged electrode and anode is positively charged electrode. So at cathode, which is a negatively charged electrode, generally the positive ions get accumulated. So the positive ion reactions will carry out at cathode. So the positive ions produced here are generally Na plus and H plus. So those two reactions will take place at cathode. So H plus ions combines with two electrons to produce H2 gas, and other positive ion is Na plus will combine with this negative ion, that is OH minus, to produce NaOH. At anode, which is a positive electrode, the negative ions reactions will be carried out. So negative ion that has been obtained in this electrolysis is Cl minus ion. That Cl minus ion, by losing two electrons, that is one electron from one chlorine and another electron from another chloride ion, two electrons will come out, and that two chlorine atoms will combine with each other in order to produce chlorine gas. So these are the reaction that happens in Nelson cell preparation or Nelson cell process, where aqueous solution of NaCl is splitted into ions in the presence of water, and respective cathode and anode reactions takes place in order to produce hydrogen gas, chlorine gas and NaOH. So at cathode we will get hydrogen gas and NaOH, whereas at anode we will get chlorine gas, children. So now let us switch on to the second method of preparation of NaOH, that is Kastner-Kellner process. So this Kastner-Kellner process is also called as mercury cathode process, children, because in this process or in this preparation we will use mercury as cathode, so that it is also called as mercury cathode process. So in this also we will just take aqueous NaCl solution, that is brine solution, and we will just split it into ions, that is NaCl will be splitted into Na plus and Cl minus ions. Now we will take mercury as cathode here, as mercury is cathode, which is a negative electrode, At this negative electrode, the positive ions get accumulated, that is sodium ions reach to the cathode, and there the negative electrode will provide electrons so that the sodium will just combine with one electron to form a sodium metal. This sodium metal which is produced at cathode just combines with the mercury metal which is present in the cathode and it forms as sodium amalgam. It combines with mercury to form an alloy which is called as sodium amalgam. Sodium amalgam. So at cathode we will get sodium amalgam, and at anode, here anode we use graphite as anode. At anode the chloride ion, that is negative ions, generally accumulate at anode because anode is a positive electrode. Anode is a positive electrode, so negative ions just get accumulated at anode. So the two chloride ions that are produced, or the chloride ions that are produced by the electrolysis of NaCl comes towards anode and they turn as chlorine gas by losing of electrons. Now this chlorine gas is produced here at anode, whereas cathode we got sodium amalgam. Still the reaction happens, children. The sodium amalgam which has been obtained, it will be in the aqueous solution, no children, because the solution we have taken is dissolved in water, so it is aqueous solution. Water molecules will be there in that aqueous solution. So this sodium amalgam which is produced at cathode will react with water present in the aqueous solution in order to turn it as sodium hydroxide with the liberation of hydrogen gas and pure mercury again. That mercury is again deposited on the cathode itself, and or it will be left in the solution itself by getting the product which we want, that is sodium hydroxide, children. So in this process, here mercury cathode process, why it is called? Because here we will use cathode, we will use mercury as cathode. So at cathode what we get? Sodium amalgam, and at anode what we will get? Chlorine gas and NaOH. So they will ask you the bits regarding the liberation of compounds, where NaOH is liberated in particular process, or which is used as cathode, which is used as anode. In such a way they may ask you the theoretical questions from the preparations or methods of preparations of different compounds that we are going to study, children. Or otherwise they may ask you the cathodic, the reaction that happens at cathode, the reaction that happens at anode. In such a way also they may ask you the questions in the objective examinations. So now we are going to discuss about the properties of NaOH, children. So first let us go with the physical properties. Some of the important physical properties are NaOH is generally deliquescent. Deliquescent means it just produces like hygroscopic only, it is very liquidy in nature. So absorption of water percent or water vapor only we call it as, and besides this it will absorb CO2 also from atmosphere in order to form as sodium carbonate, and it is the strongest base among all the hydroxides. Sodium hydroxide is the strongest base. And some important chemical properties of NaOH are, it generally reacts with non-metals to produce corresponding compounds. So some of the non-metals are boron, silicon and phosphorus. So NaOH generally reacts with boron to form Na3BO3, which is called as sodium borate. Sodium borate. So on reaction with boron it forms sodium borate, and NaOH on reaction with silicon it forms sodium silicate. Sodium silicate. And NaOH on reaction with phosphorus it will produce sodium hypophosphate. Sodium hypophosphate with phosphine gas. PH3 gas is called as phosphine gas. So these are the reaction with the corresponding non-metals. Next, sodium hydroxide can also react with halogens, children. In reaction with halogen we have two conditions, that is it can react with halogens either in dilute cold condition or it can react with halogen in concentrated hot conditions also. So according to that you should write the products according to that. We have two conditions over here, children, with the reaction of halogen. One, reaction of halogen with NaOH in dilute cold condition, and reaction of halogen with NaOH in concentrated hot condition. So in dilute cold condition and concentrated hot condition, the products may vary. One of the product is common in both of them, that is halide product is common, but in dilute cold condition along with halide product we will get hypohalite product, whereas in concentrated hot condition along with halide product we will get halate product. So if you take sodium hydroxide and react with halogens, either it may be chlorine, bromine and iodine. Generally fluorine will not show this reaction. Among these three, any of you if you take, that is NaOH plus chlorine if you take, you will get NaCl plus NaOCl. Sodium chloride plus sodium hypochloride. Sodium hypochloride you will get. So similarly, it is in dilute cold condition. If you take the same NaOH in concentrated hot condition, children, then reaction with either chlorine, bromine or iodine, you will get the products as halides and sodium halates. That means if you take NaOH plus Br2, then you will get NaBr plus NaOBr3, that is sodium borate. Sodium borate you will get. So this is the reaction with bromine. And next, the third important reaction of sodium hydroxide is reaction with metals. Generally it is metal, sodium is a metal, so the other metals can displace this sodium metal by reacting with NaOH. So generally the reaction of sodium hydroxide with metals, it will not react with alkali metals because in alkali metals it is the most reactive metal, so no reaction with other alkali metals. Coming to other metals like aluminium, beryllium, zinc, tin and lead can react with NaOH and displace and they react with sodium hydroxide and they produce their corresponding compounds. So sodium hydroxide reacts with aluminium and forms sodium aluminate, and with beryllium it forms sodium berylate, and with zinc it forms sodium zincate, and with tin it forms sodium stannate, and with lead it will form sodium plumbate. So corresponding compounds will be formed according to the reaction with that metal. So these are some important chemical properties of NaOH, children. And besides it, what are the uses of NaOH? Yes, like NaCl, NaOH is also very important compound of sodium, where we use this NaOH in paper industries, dyes industries, and also besides this we can use it in as a caustic soda, and it can also be used as a base. By diluting it, you can use it in the basic tablet preparations, that is pharmaceutical companies, and besides this it can also be used as in the uses of petroleum refining also. So in all these industries NaOH is used in many preparations, so that it is also one of the important component of sodium, children, besides sodium chloride. So in the next session of our video we are going to discuss with some other important compounds of sodium, that is sodium carbonate, sodium bicarbonate, which are commonly called as washing soda and baking soda, and their preparations and properties and uses, children.